What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and another video. In this week's video you'll see me take this one slab and turn it into 4 smaller slabs with a cool little handle for these to be used as charcuterie boards. So this is a black walnut slab that was cut locally to where I am. It's 8 feet long, about a foot wide, and somewhere around 1.5 inches thick. The first thing that I needed to do was to clean off all the bark and whatever all this stuff is under the bark on the edges. Now the easiest way that I've found to do that is just to grab an angle grinder with a sanding disc attachment and just go to work on it that way. Next I needed to break this thing down into 2 smaller pieces, so since it was 8 feet long I cut it right down the middle, giving me 2 4-foot sections, and the handles of the 2 on each one of these boards will overlap. So each board will be a little bit longer than 2 feet long altogether. This slab had been air drying for a while, so it was a little bit warped, and you can see that on my bench top it wobbled. So to flatten this thing out on the planer, because my joiner isn't big enough, I'm going to make the laziest planer sled that you've ever seen. So all you have to do is take something that is flat like a piece of plywood and then put something to shim the board under there. Right here you can see that my plywood piece should be a little bit longer because I did get a little bit of snipe, but it wasn't that bad and it ended up working overall. Now normally you're supposed to glue the shim down or attach it somehow, but as I mentioned, this is the lazy version of a planer sled, so I just wedged it in place and hoped that it didn't slide. And you can see here that the square sits flush across the top going across the board, so this did level everything out very nicely. And since one side of the board is now level, we can flip it over and plane the other side flat, which will also be completely parallel to that first side. Now I've made a few batches of these boards in the past, but I wanted to see if I could make this batch better. So I grabbed a couple cans of stain to use as a template for where the handles on these boards would go, and then I just freehanded a rough drawing of where the outline of the boards would go, so I would have a general idea of where I needed to make the cuts on the board. So on my previous batches of boards, I just took a jigsaw and I tried to cut as close to the line as I could. And those turned out okay, but the outside lines were a little rough and the curves were a little bumpy. So for this batch, I'll be using a router to cut the curves out and make my own template using this Jasper circle jig. Now this is a little tricky to do and to explain, but basically I put the router bit on the outside of where I traced that line, find a pivot point in the middle of that, and then I cut on that line until I meet the other line. Then I find a new pivot point, measure the radius of how far away that pivot point is from the line I need to be, put a pin on the underside of the Jasper jig, and then pivot it, which gets it pretty close to that line. So this step was a lot of work, but I'll be using this charcuterie board as a template for the other charcuterie boards, so I only had to do this one time. They do make templates that you can buy online or even on Etsy, but I wanted to see if I'd be able to do this by myself with this method. So for this cut, all I'm doing is plunging down maybe a 1/2 inch or so, if even that far, and I'm using a 1/4 inch spiral upcut bit to make these cuts. Spiral bits can be expensive, but they're one piece that you definitely won't be disappointed with, and I think the end result that you get is definitely worth the price. Now all the spiral bit cut does is give us an outline of where that charcuterie board handle and edges will be. It doesn't actually cut all the way through the wood. So to cut this thing out completely, I grabbed a jigsaw. Now you could use a bandsaw as well, but I don't have a bandsaw good enough to do this. But you cut as close to that outline as you can get without actually touching it. And then we'll use a flush cut trim bit with a bearing on it to match up and cut out that profile. So the bearing at the very bottom will ride up against where that smooth part is, and then the upper portion of the bit where the bearing is not will cut out the rest of the rough section, which will match up to that bottom smooth profile exactly. Now rather than do all that work again with the circle jig, I'll just be using the upcut bit with a brass bushing in my router. That way it can ride the outside of the original board that I made and use that as a template. Originally I started out with a 1/2 inch spiral upcut bit, but that bit was too thick, so I backed it back down to that 1/4 inch spiral bit that I was using earlier. In the original board that I first cut out, I was trying to get around an awkward knot that was right in the center of the board, so I didn't want to use the exact pattern that I used on the other board, so I moved this one around and I slid it a little bit further up, and I was maybe able to get an extra inch or two on this board that you see here. And if you notice the spot that I'm pointing at here, you can see where I got a little too wild with matching my edge profiles up. So I'll show you how I fixed that with a freehand router here in just a minute. But I needed to cut that other side out, so I just overlapped the board to where I liked the shape and the angle, and then I used that as a template once again to cut that out. Now this might be a little bit hard to see, but I have my palm router here and I'm trying to follow that bronze line that I originally drew the curve on, and surprisingly I was able to freehand it pretty well. The end is a little bit lopsided, but once this is cut out, nobody will ever know. And in no time I had another board cut out. Now I needed to add the hole to the handle, so I clamped it down on a piece of scrap board and then used a 2-inch Forstner bit to drill a circle hole right in the middle of that. Forstner bits are another piece that are expensive, but they work so well. They give you minimal tear out if you use a backer board, and I absolutely love these bits. So while they are indeed expensive, Forstner bits are an excellent investment in my opinion. The end of one of these boards was pretty nasty, where it was actually the live edge from the original slab, so I just cut it off with a miter saw. I guess I could have sanded it out, but anytime you get to use a saw blade instead of a sander or sandpaper, well, I think the choice is pretty obvious there. Next, I grabbed my palm router again with, I believe, a 1/4 inch roundover bit, and I went over all of the outside surfaces with that roundover bit just to soften the edges up a little bit. Speaking of softening the edges, it was time to sand this thing down, so I used the oscillating sander on the sides and my regular sander with 220 grit on the surfaces of this. The board that I have here, you can see had a crack in the knot, so I filled that in with Starbond. And if you're not familiar with Starbond, it's a type of super glue that you can put in a crack and then spray it with an activator that makes it dry instantly. After it's dry, you can sand it over the top, and it fills in small gaps and cracks pretty well perfectly to where you wouldn't even know that it was filled in with anything. After everything was sanded down smooth, we'll actually go backwards and make these boards unsmooth by water popping the grains. So I'm just taking a wet cloth here and rubbing it over the boards. And this makes the outside fibers of the board swell up with that water, and then everything is sanded down smooth once again. It is important to get the handle and all the curves and everything that you can't get with the sander by hand. And as much as sanding does suck, this is a really important step, because if you don't water pop these, as soon as these boards are washed off after their first use, even with the oil and the wax coat on, those fibers will swell up and the boards will no longer be as smooth as when you sanded them down. And so I water pop each one of the boards 3 times. And again, despite how much I hate sanding and you hate sanding, it is an essential part of this build. One of the boards was cracked probably 8 inches or so up from the end of the board, so I wanted to fix that by tying it together with some butterfly inlays. Now I did a previous video on what you're seeing here in detail, so I'll link that up to the top of the screen, but for the quick and dirty version of what exactly I'm doing here is I'm taking the butterfly template, using the router to cut out a bow tie with a brass inlay similar to how we cut out the other charcuterie board on top of the original one. Once those bow ties are cut out, I then resaw that piece on the table saw and each of those buttons will fall out. This could also be done on a bandsaw, but like I mentioned, I don't have a bandsaw capable of this. Just a heads up, on the table saw, this is a little bit of a sketchy cut, so if you are not comfortable with your table saw or you don't have a good fence on that table saw, definitely don't attempt to cut these out, at least in the way that I did. Once all the inlays are cut out, we'll take the template back over to the board, and with the different bearing down on the bottom where that router bit is, we'll then cut the same pattern of the bow tie out, and with a little bit of sanding just to file those corners down, these bow ties can be glued in place. The bow ties will prevent the piece from pulling apart any further than it already is, and also they look really cool. I like to use the sapwood of walnut just for the contrast to make these stand out, but a lot of times you'll see maple used in contrast with walnut as well. Now I completely forgot to film the part where I sand these down, but after you pound them in place, you let them dry and then you can sand everything smooth the next day. So here is the moment of the video where everybody has been waiting for, where you can see the collar pop after the oil is put on these boards. I'm using Walrus Oil cutting board oil, which is completely food safe, and this product is definitely my preference of what to use on cutting boards as well as charcuterie boards or anything of that nature. One thing that is nice about using oil for a finish is that you really can't mess this up. The oil is just showing the natural color of the wood after it's coated. So unlike using a stain or maybe some other type of finishes, the risk of leaving a hard spot or messing this up is pretty well zero. Unless of course you somehow manage to mess it up. Anyway, here is a look at all of the boards after they have had the oil soak in. If there's a lot of excess oil on them, you can wipe them off, but I like to let them set for about 24 hours. And then we will go over with, once again, Walrus Oil brand cutting board wax. And just as a disclaimer, I am not sponsored or affiliated in any way by Walrus Oil, although that would be pretty sweet if I was, because how many people can say that they're sponsored by something that has to do with a walrus? Regardless, all you do is buff a coat of wax on, let it set for maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then you wipe it back off. And with the wax on these boards, that would wrap everything up. I really liked how these turned out, and they were a ton of fun to build. As I mentioned earlier, I had done a previous batch of these before, and I think these turned out a lot better than that first batch. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you found the content useful, drop a comment below. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.